Steph, thank you. And as we've been discussing, this is a very important day for parents, teachers, educators, children, all alike. The province set to make this big back-to-school announcement about what's going to be happening come the fall. So schools have been shut down since mid-March due to COVID-19. In June, the Ford government asked school boards to prepare 3 separate plans for the upcoming year: online learning, a full-time return to school, or a blend of both. The Premier says sending 2 million students and 140,000 teachers back to class is no small feat.
Is everyone nervous? Are parents? Sure, they're nervous. I'm nervous. Everyone's nervous when you're dealing with kids. And what's even more concerning is if one of the kids have COVID and they bring it home to their parents or their grandparents.
And this comes on the heels of a report from Kids Hospital suggesting a full-time in-person return to school with increased safety measures would be best for children. The hospital's president says they've had constructive dialogue with the government about a safe reopening.
There's a significant level of complexity and anxiety associated with the return to school. What happens outside the walls of a school is equally as important as what happens within.
There is not one specific measure that will completely eliminate the risk. It is really a bundle of measures that will be required to keep school as safe as possible.
And some notable recommendations from the report. Masks should be worn by high school and middle school students, but not elementary students. Smaller class sizes, staggered lunch breaks, and distance between desks are also recommended. Coming up here at 8 o'clock, you heard from him there, but we'll be talking further with the Sick Kids president about that report as we look ahead to the provincial announcement later on today. The union representing faculty members at the University of Toronto launching a petition calling on the school to pause its plan for on-campus classes in September, saying there's no guarantee it's going to be safe for staff and students. More than 2,600 people have signed the petition, including academic workers, library staff, and graduate assistants. But school officials say their limited return to campus is in line with public health guidelines. So by this time tomorrow, Toronto will be in stage 3 of the provincial reopening here. The city yesterday passing bylaws to try and make things even safer. Indoor dining will be allowed with distancing in place. Diners will have to be seated unless arriving or leaving, going to the washroom, or paying that bill. Owners will need to take a customer log with contact information for contact tracing. And staff will be screened before they start their shift. And for parents and kids, guess what? The 800 playgrounds, they will reopen. But health experts warn these new freedoms does not mean we can let our guard down.
We will see more interaction amongst and between people, and therefore there is the risk of more COVID-19. That should not be a surprise.
Peel Region also moving into stage 3 tomorrow, but not Windsor-Essex, which reported 22 new cases yesterday. The province wants to wait another week to see if the case numbers there settle down a little bit, particularly in farming areas with migrant workers. And there is also another significant change being implemented in Toronto starting August the 5th. The city is making face coverings mandatory in condo and apartment building common areas, things like lobbies, elevators, laundry rooms. If you want a full rundown of the new bylaws, go to our website, citynews.ca. Well, Toronto Council has decided to take the province to court over a bill that critics say could lead to mass evictions over this pandemic. Tenant groups have been protesting Bill 184 for months now, which is now law and is retroactive to the start of the March lockdown. Opponents say it would make it easier for landlords to evict or collect unpaid rent from current and past tenants. Now, the government denies that's the intention of the law. Some 6,000 tenants are believed to be at risk for eviction as early as tomorrow. And something to keep in mind if you plan on heading out of Toronto Pearson Airport today, you're going to have your temperature checked before moving on to that screening checkpoint. Now, temperature screening, it begins today at Canada's 15 busiest airports. That includes Pearson, Montreal Trudeau, and in Vancouver and Calgary. The screening will be done either by a handheld thermometer or a temperature scanning camera. People who are below 38 degrees Celsius will go through. If you are at 38 or above, you are allowed a second reading after 10 minutes, but if it's still high, you will not be allowed to proceed. Okay, coming up here on BT, we are continuing our conversation about racism and discrimination. At 7:30, we're talking to a panel of guests joining me to discuss anti-Semitism, why it's now on the rise, and what can be done to fight it. And coming up next in business, not a great start for the morning markets thanks to major economic stimulus package that is hitting a roadblock in Washington. Mike Eppel will explain right after this.